Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great 24 hours of your life. Today, I'm going to be talking about Veterans Day. Veterans Day originally was known as Armistice Day. If you don't know what a veteran is a person who has served in the military. Did you know that it was a crime to lie if you say you have been in the military and you have not? So we will talk about that in a little bit, but let's talk about the pluses right now. If you are a veteran and listening, thank you. Men and women, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for all who have served to protect our country and make it land of the free. I want you to know that this is your day, November 11th. It is celebrated every single year on November 11th, no matter what day it falls on. It will always be on November 11th. So that is your special day. A lot of the offices, federal government offices, courts, local government offices are closed. That's their day off too. The day before, which is the 10th, which is the day before, is the U.S. Marine Corps Day. That's when they celebrate. But back to, and thank you all the Marines for your service. But again, thank you all armed forces for your service. There are over 2 million, not 1 million, over 2 million members in the U.S. Armed Forces. Now, that is a lot. A lot of people don't consider certain like reserves. If people are in the reserves, they are military. They are there to help us in case something happens. So thank you to all the reserve officers for taking that 2 weeks that you have to go and do your training. And don't think it's easy to get into the military, especially if you're not physically fit. Because boot camp, what I have heard, no, I was not in the military. Boot camp is apparently very, very hard because they want to make sure you can handle it, which I totally get. So just know what you are up against. And I want to thank you. I will be thanking you throughout this podcast because I am so appreciative. I had many uncles who served in the military. Many have already passed away. If you did hear my podcast in May for Memorial Day, you would have heard or you can always go back in May and hear for the May. It's a Memorial Day podcast about my Uncle Henry, who died in World War II, and that I am named after, and hear his story. And I thank him for his service in heaven. He just takes care of me. I'm sure he watches over me along with all my parents and people who have passed. But anyway, did you know that they have special parades? They're going to have parades to celebrate veterans. Veterans will be in parades. A lot of stores have discounts, Veterans Day sales. A lot of restaurants will have a special meal, or they will have a discount for your meals. Or if you are out and about and you do notice a veteran and you have the money, buy them their meal. And if you don't, stop by their table and tell them thank you. Because if it weren't for them, you wouldn't be able to go and eat that meal you're having with your family or friends, because we are the land of the free due to all of the military, all the sacrifices they have made for us. Again, it is a crime to lie. It is a crime to lie about being in the military. Back in 2013, excuse me, I'm so sorry. There is a man named Jeffrey Scott Kempler. Now, anyone out there with this same name of Scott or Jeffrey or Kempler, I apologize if someone says, "Oh, were you the guy that she talked about on the podcast?" No, you know who you are, Jeffrey Scott Kempler, that's been sentenced for lying. But this guy was sentenced in federal court to 1 year and 1 day in federal prison and 3 years of supervised release for health care fraud. This Kepler guy served not 1 year, not 2 years in the military. He was in the United States Army for 27 days. Not even a full month. So this Kepler submitted to the VA a false DD form claiming to have served in the Army for almost 3 years. 3 years. He said he was there for 3 years because he did have the credentials that he was in the armed forces. Then this jerk files another form, and this is a DD 214, and also portrayed Kepler as an Army Ranger who had been awarded the Purple Heart, the Silver Heart, and the Bronze Heart for combat service in Vietnam. Well, look, buddy, shame on you. And anything bad that happens to you, I cannot say I'm sorry because there are men and women who have died for our country. And you lied? And for all those other people who have lied about being in the military, shame on you. And what goes around comes around. Watch your back. Now, these are my opinions, and it pisses me off to know that people will lie about things like this. It just is because we are such a wonderful country, and to take advantage of that. So shame on you. Anyway, this Kepler guy got 3 years worth of health care benefits. And he was finally caught with the fraud attempting to obtain a VA disability benefit. So during the proceedings, Kepler admitted to acquiring using military tattoos and memorabilia to falsely represent himself to individuals as a decorated combat veteran. So all I got to say, if there's someone you know that has lied about being in the military and submitted for these certain things just to get the disabilities or health benefits, you need to report them because it is a crime. And I have a number, toll free, 1-800-786-2551. Also, I have an address, but I'll put the address and this phone number again on the description of this podcast. Anyway, I didn't mean to go off on that, but it just really ticks me off to know that people do that kind of thing because it's so wrong. Because women and men are putting their life on the line, and then you have some schmuck who decides he's going to do this. No, I don't think so. So, now I'm going to talk about women. The Revolutionary War, would you believe there were women that were out there with the soldiers? There were wives and sisters and daughters and mothers. And what did they do? They really weren't in combat, or I'm sure maybe some were. But they were out there to mend the clothing, tend the wounds, forage for food, cook, clean the laundry, and clean cannons. Now, that's a lot. That's a whole lot. So, I think a lot of people don't consider or even think about women back in that time in the Civil War, that women were there helping. Also, during World War I, there were some young girls, and they were called the Hello Girls. Now, these are women who manned the telephone and switchboards. So they were the operators, and they often worked close to the front lines in France. So, when you go into an office and you see someone and she's answering the phones and taking notes and leading, these women, you might think they're just sitting there being pretty. No, I was a receptionist. It is not an easy job, especially when you have a gazillion lines coming in. So I cannot even imagine what these women during World War II, how hard and difficult that was. Like I said, they were on the front lines of France, and they were not recognized about this high-pressure job that they did until 1979. Decades later. Decades! So that's so crazy. The other thing is women in World War II were finally, I know it sounds, they were finally allowed, but they were finally, they were they were stepped up to military, and they were able to enlist. So we had the women in the Army who were the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, and they were called the WACs. The Navy was Women Accepted Volunteer Emergency Services, and they were called WAVES. The Marine Corps enlisted women in the Marine Corps Women's Reserve, and the Coast Guard, they were the Women's Reserve, and they were called SPARS. Um, but in in total, nearly 350,000 American women served in World War II. You never hear about them unless there's a movie made about them or you read a book. But there were that many. That's a lot. That's a lot of women that we didn't hear about. Women also served as nurses, and 57,000 served in the Army Nurse Corps and 11,000 in the Navy Nurse Corps. Now, these roles were not without risk. People just, they weren't just there in their little white outfits that they used to wear, their uniforms. Outfits, uniforms, I'm sorry. They were out there, and they were, making sure to help these people, these military men, to health. And I'm sure a lot of them even performed major surgeries. Um, in total, 432 women were killed in the line of duty during World War II, and 88 were taken as POWs. But they were in all the branches, and they did. I mean, you had women who were mechanics working on the planes, and it was during the Korean War. There was just, I don't think people realize that women were out there doing their bit because, of course, it was a different time. I understand. Um, but it wasn't until 1967 that President LBJ opened promotions to women to general and flag ranks. I know it takes time, but we're getting there. I'm not saying women are taking over the world, but we should. No, I'm just kidding. But it is amazing how many you don't hear much about the women. Again, there were 300,000 women who had served in Iraq and Afghanistan. So my stepson was in the Marines, and now he is a National Guard recruiting for the Texas Army National Guard recruiting. And we are so proud of him, and he loves doing it. And he's doing a great job. And Kelly, thank you so much for all your service and your hard work and your continuation of doing this. Also, thank my brother Bobby for being in the Air Force. Air Force. I know you made mom and dad proud. And I just want to remind you, if you see someone out there and you know they are ex-military, please be sure to thank them. It is so important that thanks are important. They're the pats on the back that we need. So I thank you. I believe that military men are a blessing to all of us, and men and women, excuse me, men and women, definitely women. Thank you all for your service. Thank you for keeping us safe. Thanking you for your actions in keeping America beautiful. It is a beautiful land that we live in, and I always say we're spoiled here in America. I think about the Ukrainian people, and that is a sad situation they're going through. I don't know what's going on with Putin, but God bless our veterans and all armed forces. We appreciate you. And again, go count your blessings. And one of our blessings, or my blessings, is those who have served. Thank you, and go and have a wonderful Veterans Day, because all of our veterans have definitely earned it. Until later, thank you for listening.